Good evening. My name is Joy Cawthorn, and I have the pleasure to serve as the Chief Development Officer for the Southeastern Pennsylvania region of the American Red Cross. It is my distinct privilege to welcome you to our fourth Spring Virtual Speaker Series event entitled Caring for Yourself, Spiritual and Emotional Care During COVID-19. This presentation will share how the Red Cross provides emotional and spiritual care in the communities we serve throughout Southeastern Pennsylvania. Before we begin, I would like to share a few participant tips with you. This presentation is being recorded, so please stay on mute to reduce echoes and background noise. If you hear an echo, please lower your volume slightly. And to keep our presentation within the allotted time, we will not have a live question and answer session. However, I encourage you to email or call your Red Cross representative that invited you to today's event with any questions or requests for more information. So thank you for your attention to that. I'm really excited to introduce to you our presenters for this evening. Kevin Masturzo, our Red Cross Disaster Mental Health Care volunteer, and Cathy Jensen, our Red Cross Response National Headquarters Disaster Spiritual Care Deputy Advisor. Kevin Masturzo has his master's degree in social work from Temple University and is a practicing licensed clinical social worker. He has over 20 years experience working with a variety of populations, focusing on mental health, child custody, and child and adolescent behavioral and developmental issues. In 2008, Kevin founded TSW Consulting, following his desire and inspiration to provide support and develop solutions for the many unmet needs and lack of comprehensive services in the communities he worked and beyond. Kevin started with the Red Cross in 2005 as a first aid and CPR instructor. After taking some time to raise his family, he rejoined the American Red Cross Southeastern Pennsylvania region in 2020 as a member of the Disaster Mental Health Team. We appreciate your service, Kevin. Cathy Jensen, who serves as our Response National Headquarters Disaster Spiritual Care Deputy Advisor for the Red Cross. She also serves with the National Virtual Family Assistance Center Integrated Condolence Call Center team, assisting clients impacted by the COVID-19 virus. She earned her master's degree of pastoral counseling and her doctorate degree of psychology from the Graduate Theological Foundation in South Bend, Indiana. Cathy also completed advanced pastoral studies at the University of Oxford in the United Kingdom. Cathy has worked for the Department of Defense throughout the United States and Europe, serving soldiers and their families as a religious educator, spiritual care provider, and pastoral coordinator. Prior to joining the American Red Cross Disaster National Headquarters Response Team, she was the American Red Cross Disaster Spiritual Care Advisor for the Central Atlantic Division and Mid-Atlantic Division. Cathy is also a Disaster Action Team Supervisor in Philadelphia. She has served on national disaster relief operations and currently leads the individual disaster care mass casualty response team in Southeastern Pennsylvania. In addition to Cathy's service with the American Red Cross, Cathy is a staff chaplain for Penn Medicine, University of Pennsylvania, Presbyterian Medical Center, working primarily in level 1 trauma. Very impressive. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming Cathy Jensen. Cathy?
Thank you, Joy. It's always a pleasure to talk with Red Crossers and especially about disaster spiritual care. This slide illustrates what disaster spiritual care does first and foremost. And that is, we are the calm presence for our clients. Some want to talk, and we just listen with compassion and be non-judgmental, and others don't want to talk. They want to remain silent, and we offer that safe place for them to be still and as they begin their road to recovery. Next slide. Individuals impacted by disaster have more than just physical needs. People often rely on their faith and spiritual resources to cope with the disaster and move forward into recovery. Trained disaster spiritual care team members are available to talk compassionately and impartially with individuals and assist in meeting their spiritual needs. This type of care can be apart from or in addition to disaster mental health and disaster casework that's provided by the Red Cross. In order to be on the team, one has to either be a board-certified chaplain or a board-certified clinical chaplain or an endorsed leader of a local faith community or faith-based organization or a professional chaplain. Next slide, please. The Disaster Spiritual Care Program provides culturally sensitive services that meet the spiritual needs of individuals, families, and communities, based on the understanding that all persons maintain values and beliefs that are affected by traumatic events. The role of the Disaster Spiritual Care team member is to assist people in drawing upon their own spiritual resources, values, and/or their faith spiritual traditions. The Disaster Spiritual Care team member is responsible for helping meet the spiritual needs of the client, whether or not they share the same faith, tradition, or if they have no faith at all. The Disaster Spiritual Care team member is also responsible for identifying the resources and providing referrals to other activities and community resources. The Disaster Spiritual Care activity is part of the individual disaster care team, known as an IDC. This consists of disaster health services, disaster mental health, and disaster spiritual care. And the Disaster Spiritual Care team members also collaborate with our community engagement partnerships, mass care, casework and recovery, staff services, shelter managers, disaster action teams, and government operations, all as best practices to provide excellent client care and to avoid duplication of services. And when does one refer to disaster spiritual care? Always if there's a missing or deceased loved one, and also perhaps their pet has died in the event. Referrals received by other Red Cross members or a family member of the client. Referrals from clients or loved ones hospitalized, service or rituals needed in response to a disaster, including funerals, memorials, and also when a client exhibits severe spiritual stress. And you know this when they're starting to ask those existential questions, such as, why did this happen to me? Where is God in all of this? What do I do next? Am I safe? Is it going to happen again? How can I continue? Why did I survive? Why me? Will they find my loved one? During the pandemic, our way to deliver services has all been virtual, and this has really been a challenge to some folks that are used to working in person and being up close and personal. And I ran across this, and I keep this in front of me during our virtual world response as a reminder to me of the importance of continuing care to our clients. And it's every hand that we don't shake must become a phone call that we place. Every embrace that we avoid must become a verbal expression of warmth and concern. Every inch and every foot that we physically place between ourselves and another must become a thought as to how we might be of help to that other, should the need arise. And one of the responses that Red Cross has made with this, next slide please, is opening a virtual family assistance center. The Virtual Family Assistance Center was open to address the many individuals and families that have experienced a disruptive bereavement and grief process due to the restrictions that related to COVID-19. The virtual team is comprised of specially trained disaster spiritual care, disaster mental health, and disaster health service volunteers. And these dedicated volunteers for well over a year now are connecting with families over the phone to offer condolences, support, and access to resources that may be available, to providing support for virtual memorial and funeral services, and also connecting families with their local faith-based community partners. And also, we host online classes to help foster resilience and facilitate coping skills. The Virtual Family Assistance Center continues to evolve to meet the current needs of our clients and workforce by offering compassionate care and support response to clients and workforce during the chronic and long-term disasters, also during mass casualty events, transportation incidents, pandemics. The clients speak with the volunteers with this specialized training who provide spiritual support and assistance in locating the resources to meet their unique needs. We also have been implementing special projects requiring innovative solutions to complex problems. A lot of the civil unrest that we have helped with would fall into this category. Our capabilities can be quickly increased for large events, or they can remain at minimal one-on-one. We also support the clients who need special assistance, personalized care, and for over a year, we have continued to assist our clients by remaining calm, non-judgmental, compassionate, as they tell their stories, and we make the appropriate referrals to their local community resources. I want to share a couple of stories, and one is from a client in West Virginia. They called after seeing the toll-free number on the evening news, and she said she was living without power in her apartment for 3 weeks because her boyfriend was sick from the coronavirus and had been in the hospital, and she wasn't working, and they couldn't pay their electric bill, and now they're late on their rent. Additionally, she had her phone turned off, so she had to walk about 7 miles to use her sister's house phone to call the Red Cross. I explained to the client what the toll-free number was set up for and that I would help as best I could. I also provided her the number to the nearest Red Cross chapter. And then I looked up additional resources that I thought might be helpful to her with her rent and other things. We spent about 25 minutes talking about the resources that were available to her and some that might potentially be available. And during the course of our conversation, she indicated that she had gone to church, but they had closed due to the COVID virus. So she prayed, and then she saw our number on her neighbor's television, and she believed that this was God answering her prayers when she reached out to the Red Cross. We don't offer prayer unless it's asked, but she opened the door, so I did ask if prayer would be helpful to her, and she said yes. And that's actually how we concluded our time together in prayer. Another incident was a young mother who was alone on the street caring for her little son, and she was exhausted, out of hope, hungry, and grieving the loss of her job, her home, and her safety. And together we sought answers to questions that she was having a hard time formulating, such as how do I get shelter? How do I protect my child? How am I going to feed us? So she reached out to the Virtual Family Assistance Center, and our team collaborated to find a variety of resources for her. And between the Aunt Bertha site, which is like a 311, Catholic Charities, we were able to assist her in getting the support that she needed. And she made the comment that blessings show up in the strangest of places. Next slide, please. I truly believe, after my years of working with Red Cross, that all Red Crossers know how to care for others. But remember, be there for others, but never leave yourself behind. And I have a few tidbits for you. As we all people find ourselves on some shaky ground throughout the pandemic, and we're just trying to settle in what our new normal might look like, because many of us have lost loved ones or friends and neighbors, community, our workplace, our entertainment venues, perhaps even loss of financial security. And just an overall sense of peace and safety is something that I believe most everyone longs for. So our team offers some tips on ways to help you and all find peace. So some things for you to think about. Where do you draw your strength from? For that is your sense of power. And who or what inspires you? What helps you find your peace? Perhaps it's time with nature, or your pet, or just going through photos of precious times and memories. Always remember to breathe. You can just hit your inner pause button, listen to your silence, and then if you're so inclined, flow into a quiet meditation. And what are you grateful for? Gratitude is the balm of healing for our spirit. Where do you see your hope and meaning? Because it is a comforter. Do you feel brave, or is fear feeling stronger? You just need sometimes to remind yourself, I'm okay. This is going to pass. Are you feeling love? Do you have people around you or reaching out to you from afar who gift you with love? Do you feel safe? Reach out and seek help as you need it. You can always call one of the disaster spiritual care or disaster mental health team members. Try your best to provide balance and structure in your day that brings you peace. Patterns and rituals do create balance. And just stay connected to those pockets of joy. And always remember that humor provides a break from many of the things above. Thank you very much, and thank you for your support. I'm now going to turn it over to my colleague, Kevin.
All right, thank you. Hello, and thanks for joining us. Certainly, COVID has affected all of us, causing the significant interruptions and just the constant need to adjust to things. And certainly these uncertain times cause a lot of stress for all of us, even though we all experience it differently and deal with it differently. In these COVID times, with stress and the unknown, emotional care is essential. Emotional care really starts with recognizing stress and its effects. So we're going to start off just by kind of taking a look at typical reactions to stress. A lot of times, the first one that everybody thinks about is emotional. And what emotional stress is about feelings. It could be anything from like anxiety and depression, any kind of mental health needs, whether they're something that we've experienced in the past or whether they're new and maybe a first time we're experiencing them, such as depression or anxiety. It could be feelings of irritability, of being overwhelmed, of not being able to juggle or to have the things in order that we usually like. It could be, feeling isolated or restless, or any number of other feelings or what we call emotional reactions. The second type of reaction to stress is a behavioral. When we talk about behavioral reactions, we're talking about changes in everything from activity level, what I do on the everyday, day-to-day basis, to efficiency, how well I manage my time, communication, ability to manage responsibilities. Certainly things have changed for a lot of us with work or working from home and just either having a lot more responsibilities or trying to find ways to deal with not having as many responsibilities. Then it also goes into habits and routines and our ability to be organized. Another reaction to stress is physical. And what that really is it's things like blood pressure, appetite and sleep pattern changes, fluctuations in weight, even things like being able to manage or having aches and pains. Maybe typical pain that we usually have seems worse, or we develop new ones. Certainly energy level, which is, everything from having, believe it or not, a high level of energy or feeling exhausted and fatigued all the time. And then hygiene. Sometimes, especially when we're stressed, sometimes we forget about things such as activities of daily living, which results in poor hygiene. Then we get into the cognitive reactions to stress. When we talk about cognitive reactions, what we're talking about is literal changes in memory, our ability to recall things, whether it be short-term or long-term. Again, our ability to be and stay organized. Really just our thinking patterns. Sometimes when we react to stress, we get stuck in what's called negative thinking patterns. And it's very hard to identify or believe in positive things. Our concentration, our attention span could be affected, as well as our ability to multitask. And again, to juggle the multiple responsibilities that we have in everyday life. And then one more way that we react to stress is in social changes. Again, that could be withdrawing from things that we would typically do. Could be introversion, not wanting to be bothered with going out of the house or talking with friends or family, staying isolated in a room or in front of the TV. Again, communications, overlaps quite a bit, but sometimes it's the not wanting to talk to anybody. And sometimes it's quite the opposite. When we're stressed, we want to tell everybody our story. And sometimes that ends up in burning people out. It could be being irritable. Again, it's socially where we're not as patient or tolerant to family or friends or work. So there's just some of the examples of things, reactions to stress. And what it is everybody is a unique individual. So everybody deals with and manages stress differently. So then the question comes up, what can we do about it? And when we go to the what I can do about it, next slide, what we're talking about is actually coping skills. And again, coping skills is something that is different for everybody. But what they have in common is they're a conscious effort to minimize or tolerate stressful situations we cannot control. And that's the main thing with coping skills. It's dealing with things that we can't control. So when we talk about coping skills, there's negative coping skills and there's positive. When we talk about negative coping skills, it could be everything from reacting to stress with nail biting, stress eating, could be things like smoking or drug and alcohol use or dependence, or also dependence on other people. It's okay to lean on and it's okay to have support, but when we become dependent is really when the red flag comes up. And then we talk about positive coping skills. And what positive coping skills are is a way to accept what's going on and to do something about it. Next slide, please. And what we start with, and usually with a variety of almost every challenge that any individual or family has, can boil down to, just as well as we're talking about emotional care and stress, it begins with self-care. When COVID came and disrupted our world, most people were taken out of their norm, their everyday life. So it's really important when we talk about self-care and reacting to stress, it's either trying to return to our norm, but most of the time we can't. So it's developing a new norm. And that new norm starts with routine and consistency. Developing a daily routine and ways that we do things. The new and different comes in because, again, when we create a new norm, and especially with COVID, where we were limited in being able to go into social situations, where our whole world was flipped upside down as far as going to work goes. Sometimes it's accepting it, it's finding the new and the different ways to do things. And that is really important. So again, it comes down to what do I do? What can I do? What do I do for me? It's not just the activities of daily living. It's not just the getting into a routine or the new and the different, which is, if I can't go out and socialize, what can I do within my own home? But it also comes into some practical things that we could do. Reflection. Again, a lot of, and I repeat myself a lot when I say is acceptance. Accepting what's going on. And the reflection, sometimes when we're in our negative thoughts or negative thought patterns, the reflection is really looking at our life and saying, okay, this is how it is. What are the positives? And we always acknowledge the negatives as well, but it's really important to look for the positives because they're always there. It's just sometimes hard to see. Mindfulness. Mindfulness is simply stopping for a minute or two every day or a few times a day, stopping, taking a deep breath, and then asking yourself, what am I doing? What am I thinking? What should I be doing? And what should I be thinking? And it's really a way, it's kind of a grounding activity. Meditation. Meditation just isn't, crisscross applesauce and burning incense. Meditation could be anything from listening to calming music to going and sitting outside, going and sitting by a stream. Could be just sitting quietly in your house. There's so many different ways, and all meditation is kind of just getting in your own head, emptying your mind, and allowing it to fill again. Activity, keeping busy. Again, the new and different comes into play. Sometimes we can't do things, we get stuck on what we can't do instead of figuring out what we can. So it's really important to make sure you're active. Breathing. Breathing is so important. Oxygen is taken for granted, but it really is about just taking a minute, taking some deep breaths and putting some extra oxygen into your body. And then there's things like progressive muscle relaxation. You can find a million of them on the internet, and they're guided meditations would help you relax each and every muscle group of your body. Another important thing when we talk about emotional care is support systems and resources. Support systems is, who do I have to lean on? Who do I have to talk to? Whether it's somebody in my house, whether it's somebody outside my house, friends, relatives, coworkers, and resources, which are, if I'm really struggling, do I need to talk to a counselor or a therapist? Do I need to get involved in online groups? Do I need to do something different, such as, turning to the Red Cross or to Aunt Bertha, which is the resources? And then, there's acceptance versus discouragement and frustration. I'm very big on what's in the past. From this moment backwards, we can't change. We can become discouraged and frustrated by it, or we can accept it and ask ourselves what to do about it. I'm one that always says discouragement and frustration is a waste of energy and time. We need to accept what's going on, especially if it's out of our control. And we ask ourselves, okay, what can I do about it? And just because we accept it doesn't mean we're depressed or anxious about it. It means it gives us an element of control back, because it's the what can I do? And then last but not least, there's planning. Planning for the now, which is today and tomorrow. What can I do? When we talk about emotional care, again, it's okay. Things aren't going the way I want, or I'm feeling down. What can I do about it? Do I need to go for a walk? Do I need to pet the dog? Do I need to phone a friend? Do I need to reach out to a resource? And then for the future, sometimes it's just all planning ahead. As I told my own family, my own kids, as they were getting quite discouraged, it's like, okay, let's plan for when this is over. What can we do? Where do we want to go eat? Where do we want to go on vacation? And what are we going to do? So again, instead of getting focused on the past and what isn't, we look to the future and plan. All right. So thank you for listening. I'll turn it over to Joy now to close us out here.
Thank you so much, Kevin. What great, helpful, useful tips. Truly, truly appreciate that. And I really appreciate Cathy sharing her experiences with us as well. Very powerful, motivational, and encouraging presentation tonight. So thank you both. We also want to thank you for joining us for our Caring for Yourself spiritual and emotional care during COVID-19 virtual speakers event today. We hope that you have learned more about how the Red Cross provides emotional and spiritual care in the communities we serve throughout Southeastern Pennsylvania. It's people like you, our volunteers, and our staff that fuel the Red Cross mission of preventing and alleviating human suffering. We look forward to your continued support. If you're interested in learning more, please reach out to your Red Cross contact that invited you to today's event. We hope you will join us for our June Spring 2021 Speaker Series event. The topic and date are noted here on this slide. So thank you again and good night.